Okay, everyone, I know there will be some people that are hopping on in just a few minutes, but that is okay. We will just get started now. Thank you all so much for coming on again tonight. We want to welcome you to the second night of the 2022 Agriculture Direct Marketing Summit. If you were able to join us last night, you got to hear two incredible sessions by Clint Quarles, Dr. Steve Isaacs, and Emily Brown. If you weren't able to join last night, do not fret. These sessions are being recorded and you will be able to go back and watch these at your leisure. A few house rules, the same as last night. If you have any questions, please refrain from turning on your microphone and instead type your questions in the chat box. This includes questions for our speakers. This is just to help with the audio and video recording and keep things running smoothly on our end. We have worked in time for questions for each speaker and will be able to get to as many as time allows. The Zoom link you have received a few times now will be the same for tomorrow night. If you happen to misplace your link, you can log back into Eventbrite or just let us know and we'll be able to send it to you. If you weren't on last night, my name is Bethany Precopa-Cox and I am the Direct Marketing Program Manager at the Kentucky Horticulture Council. Along with our Executive Director, Cindy Finiseth, we've had a great group of partners to work alongside during the planning of this. Thank you to Sharon Spencer from the Kentucky Department of Agriculture, Fran McCall at Kentucky Farm Bureau, Alita Botts and Taryn Barney at the Kentucky Center for Agriculture and Rural Development, and Tim Woods and Savannah Columbia from the University of Kentucky's Agricultural Economics Department. This would not be possible without their support and the support of the USDA through the Farmers Market Promotion Program grant. Tonight, we've got two wonderful speakers, and first up is Megan Brew-LeFew from the University of Tennessee's Extension Center for Profitable Agriculture. Megan has been an extension specialist at the center for almost 20 years now. She provides leadership to the center's programs in agritourism, direct marketing, and value-added products. Some of you might have seen her presentation last year during the first annual Agriculture Direct Marketing Summit, where she did a deep dive on value-added products for your farm. It was wonderful. She's developed numerous publications, workshops, and programs, and has won several national and regional awards. Tonight, she will be presenting on exploring agritourism for your farm. Megan, if you're ready, take it away.
Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Bethany. I'm not sure what to think about 20 years and things there. Things have gone by in a flash. It is really an honor to be with you all tonight, and I hope you recognize the incredible team there that you have in Kentucky that have worked together on so many great projects, but especially in putting together this Direct Marketing Summit. I am really excited tonight to get to speak to you about exploring agritourism for your farm. We did some webinar series on this topic last year. So I tried to pick out the biggest points that I could share with you and condense about 8 hours of the best stuff into less than an hour. So there's more where this came from, but hopefully this will give you a really good idea of where to start if you're interested in exploring agritourism. So we are going to cover a lot of ground. We'll start with what is agritourism and talk a little bit about what all that might entail. Why agritourism for farmers and for communities and for consumers. I'm going to visit a little bit about some example operations. Some of you may know these folks. I tried to pick a few from Kentucky. I am more familiar with operations in Tennessee, just to show kind of the breadth of types of activities that can fall under that agritourism umbrella. And then I've tried to condense some of the best tips I have for those of you who may be interested in exploring agritourism for your specific enterprise and developing an operation. Some of the 10 major steps I would say in doing that, and the best tips I could give, and then some resources at the end for others who can help you in that journey. So we'll dive in, and Bethany and team, if you need to jump in for questions at any time, go ahead and do that. And we'll take those as they come if you wish, or at the end if that makes better sense. So I get this question a lot, to be honest. What is agritourism? And it is a little bit more complicated than one might think, because it depends a little bit on why you're asking the question, and how that definition may be applied. So I'm going to give you first just the definition that agritourism is. So when I think of agritourism, I think of anything that brings the public to the farm to generate revenue. And the public, or the audience, or groups of consumers that participate in agritourism are pretty wide as well. Oftentimes we think of kids for field trips, so school field trips, for example, or families for family fun. There might be some folks gearing up for Easter activities, for example, this spring. We have had a quite long run in the farm wedding or venue type operations. And for example, farm product purchases or farm classes. So folks who are interested in buying products, in participating in classes and participating in activities or education, are coming to the farm to buy product purchases, buy products, make purchases, or to participate in experiences. So for farmers, agritourism is a business, right? So we need to make sure that we're treating agritourism as a business in developing a plan. It's setting goals for that and carrying through a plan. I will say that it is a challenge for folks, especially getting up and going, as you can imagine. And sometimes from the outside looking in, we don't really understand that, right? So sometimes folks may think that it's really easy, and they might count school buses or cars and multiply that by how many people they think that are in that, and multiply that by the admission charge, and they just think farmers are raking in the dollars in agritourism. And it can't be as hard as, real farm work. But it is hard work. And, a lot of times that hard work is in a short time of preparation for the season, and then a really condensed season, in addition to other parts of farm work and life that you have going on. It is an investment, because the funds and the time that you're putting into agritourism, there's an opportunity cost for that, in that you could be using those funds for another investment, or that time for a different investment. And so you definitely have to take that into consideration. And there is risk involved with this. And a lot of times people think about the risk of people coming onto your farm and getting hurt. And that's definitely one that we will talk about later, but there's also other risks involved. On the other side, maybe the benefits of agritourism for farmers. Some farmers really value the opportunity to educate or advocate for agriculture through their venues and operations. With folks being, the general public being relatively far removed from agriculture, to be able to share how products are produced and why, and to invite them into the world, is important and fulfilling work. It's fun for farmers oftentimes to see people laughing and having a good time, and making memories, and really enjoying life on the farm, and working and meeting people. We hope that agritourism is a revenue enhancer, right? That you're able to gain profit from agritourism type activities. That's certainly most goal of most of the operations. And it's also a way that you might be able to add value to farm resources. A lot of times we have a lot of investment in the land and the property and the facilities there, and utilizing those for agricultural production, but also then for agritourism is a way to add value to that. For consumers of agritourism are often looking for something that is authentic, that is real. And so that's something that we really need to think about when we're building our operations, and telling our stories is really sharing with them what's authentic about us. They're looking for something unique, unique products or services or unique experiences. A lot of times they're looking to learn something. So some consumers are looking for intellectual stimulation, right? To learn something new that they can share with others and come away with. Some folks may be looking for a relaxing getaway, to get out of the office, get out of town, get away from home just a little bit, and get out in the fresh air and enjoy some time and get their shoulders down from around their ears. A lot of folks are looking to make a memory, whether that's through fun with their family or with their friends, or in some special event in their life. Some consumers are looking for fun, and some are even looking for exhilarating fun. We'll talk about some operations that do this. They might be looking for delicious local foods, whether those are raw products or whether they're some value-added products, or some of the fun types of kettle corn or whatever your guilty pleasure is when you go to some of these things, fried Oreos or donuts, apple cider donuts, whatever that may be. They may be looking for beauty out of the city again, or a romantic place, or maybe they're nostalgic. Maybe they grew up on a farm or visited their grandparents' farm, and being there brings back lots of good memories for them. So agritourism is a lot of things. Agritourism can also be very valuable for communities as a whole. It is extremely valuable for communities to have places where the local people, and people who come in from out of town to shop and play right there. Sometimes agritourism operations are another weapon in the tourism arsenal, to where it will help draw people to come or stay longer, and hopefully stay overnight in a community. That it can be very important for tax revenue in a community. Also, the revenue that's made by an agritourism operation or a farm oftentimes is reinvested back in that community, because those farmers like you are buying their products and supplies a lot of times in town. They're banking there. They're going to the doctor there. They're hiring local folks, and sometimes quite a few folks for their operations, bringing in that sales tax revenue or overnight stay revenue. And we know also from research that keeping land in farms helps to save funds that don't have to be used for other public purposes. So it's valuable to save farmland. Also, having the quality of life of having farms and things to do. Agritourism operations and farms often support local causes and local charities. And then all of these funds that come into the community once cycle through again. And so there's multiplier effects, bringing even greater benefits of agritourism to the communities, the regions, and even the state. So that's a little bit about what agritourism is and what it is to different people within kind of the economy and the system. So why would a farmer be interested in agritourism? And some folks kind of have a little bit of anxiety if you think about having 500 kindergartners on your farm at once, and other people are like, bring them on. Let's go for it. So why do those farmers that do agritourism consider that? And a lot of times it goes back to that opportunity to increase financial returns. And it's either to add value to the farm resources that they have available, or to add value to the farm products that they sell. We know that farming is challenging, and being a profitable farm is even more challenging. You know, about 14.3 cents of every dollar a consumer spends at a grocery store makes it back to the farm. And by directly marketing your products to consumers, like from an on-farm retail store, or a pick your own operation, or manufacturing your own products to sell directly there at your concession stand, or selling products for decorative purposes, for example, you can earn that entire dollar of that consumer that a consumer spends. Now, there's some more risk involved, and there's some more expenses made within there, but you're able to remove some middlemen from the supply chain, and able to take advantage of the demand for fresh and local food and other products and experiences, and maybe even add value to products that might go to waste. Another way to look at it is in the midst of the experience economy. So we would, on a farm, we produce products for sale, and a lot of times we might sell those as a raw commodity. So if we were an apple grower and we grew apples and we were marketing those through a typical commodity supply chain, we might be able to sell those apples for $30 a bushel. Okay, so you might have a lot of apples and you might sell a lot of $30 a bushel apples, but there might be some apples that are you might have a smaller quantity of apples, or you might have some apples that aren't as pretty, or that are surplus and you can't sell, or not the right size. And we might be able to take some apples, or even our good apples, and add value to them and make apple pies out of them. I hope you've all had dinner by now. Make apple pies out of those apples. And you can make several pies out of that bushel of apples. Now, you're going to definitely have some more ingredients that go in there, and you're going to have more labor that go in there as far as making and marketing those pies in a different way. But you might be able to sell this pie for $14, let's say, for this fresh apple pie. Well, so you have made a good and you've added value to your raw commodity. You could also go a step further then and add a little service to that, and add a little slice that pie into 6 or 8 slices, and add some ice cream and caramel on top, and sell that pie by the slice, maybe at the farmer's market, or in an on-farm cafe, right? And then you could sell that for $5 or $6 a slice times your 6 or 8 slices, and we've added more value to those apples. We can even go beyond that and stage experiences, and this is where we go further with agritourism, right? There's many things that you can do as far as experiences with apples. Taste testing of different apple varieties, wagon tours through your apple orchard when those trees are blooming, so people can enjoy the beauty of that or take pictures. Teaching a class on how to bake the apple pie, where they go home with their very own apple pie, and the experience of of spending that time with you or whoever the master baker is on those pies and learning your secrets. You know, you could charge quite a bit, $40 or $50 probably for, or more, even for a class, or a farm to table event that includes your apples. Even using apples in a slingshot to try to hit a target. Lots of different ways that you can add experiences to the farm, and the experience is where folks are typically willing to pay the most for a product or service. So that's where we want to get, and kind of the value, where we get the most value out of agritourism. So let's go through some example operations to talk a little bit more about what kinds of things that you can do. And this is just to get your kind of juices flowing. There are an infinite number of types of activities that that can be agritourism type activities that can happen on a farm. So this is one that Kentucky folks are probably very familiar with. We love Cheney's Dairy Barn, and anytime we have an excuse to go have ice cream, we certainly do that, or have a chance to visit with Carl and Deborah. They do wonderful agritourism there with their dairy barn, where you can go in and purchase their milk and purchase their ice cream. They have just started some relatively new self-guided farm tours that go through, and you can see their new robotic milker in action and learn about the farm there. They do some wonderful events, the ice cream and a movie events in the summertime, breakfast with Santa Claus, among other things. I think there was one where that's ice cream for breakfast day, and they have a special event that day, as well as a playground and some other things. So a really good example of agritourism there. Falcon Ridge Farm is in Tennessee, closer to the Memphis area in the southwest corner. They do a lot of different things. They grow a wide variety of produce, vegetables and fruits, and have added flowers now. And they take a lot of those to farmers markets and have a community supported agriculture option as well. They do strawberries, pick your own strawberries at the farm that bring people to the farm there. They have a farm store where people can come in and buy their produce. They do school field trips and have a fall festival with, the playground area, petting farm area, pumpkins, and then also do some Easter events coming up and have Christmas trees. So they are very focused on the agricultural production and incorporating that into their events, and then adding some extra things like the Easter festival to help kick off spring. Lucky Ladd Farms, Amy and Jason Ladd are in Middle Tennessee, and they are in kind of a sweet spot between Nashville, Franklin, and Williamson County. So this is an area of the state that has a really high median household income, meaning a lot of people have some disposable income. So they're in a spot there with quite a bit of opportunity, with a lot of people in that area as well. They bill themselves as Tennessee's largest petting farm. They have hundreds of animals, and right now are flooding social media with pictures of baby goats, which is always good. So they kick off their season in April, with Good Friday and some Easter activities. They are open through the summer. They have some things like a a splash pad and a bubble machine. They also offer some day camps for kids in the summer where they're kind of assigned their own goat and they learn how to take care of that goat, as well as get to have lots of fun during the day camps. And then their big season is fall. They have done some sunflower festivals in the past. They have a large playground, and they are also in a very diverse area with plant life. So they have a neat nature trail that talks about a lot of the flora and fauna and geology of the area where they're at. So we may not think of haunted attractions oftentimes with agriculture, but farms can be scary places. That corn maze in the dark gets extra scary, or haunted woods. And this is Jones Orchard in West Tennessee as well. Has a family fun activity, does lots of fruits and vegetables and pick your owns and farmers markets, but they have another side that comes out at night in the fall. Ticket prices for haunts are pretty high. There's lots of challenges with these operations. You need oftentimes a lot of actors, quite a bit of investment in the all the costumes and props and that sort of thing. Some people absolutely love offering a haunt, and if you love haunts, that would be one to check, a type of enterprise to check out. Evans Orchard is in Kentucky, and they do a lot of pick your own. They have a great gift store and market, and even a cafe on the farm. And I believe I heard that they're looking into some cidering as a new opportunity. What a cute front porch they have there. So Grinders Switch Winery is in Tennessee, and they have the farm location in rural Hickman County, and then a satellite location right in Nashville. And they certainly they have their tasting room and kind of gift shops there, but they do some really unique or interesting ticketed events. So they have different tastings with chocolate and wine. They have fire pits that you can rent and buy charcuterie boards or s'mores boards or whatever to go out and just enjoy some time outside with your friends and a fire. They have a marketplace where different vendors come in one weekend. They have food trucks that come in on the different weekends that they feature, and just try to have a lot of events and activities that bring people to them, especially out there in rural Hickman County. They also have a small room that people can rent for bridal showers or things like that. Green Door Gourmet is right in Davidson County, which is Nashville. And so there's lots of challenges with that in that urban area with planning and zoning and other type regulatory issues. But they grow a lot of fruits and vegetables and herbs. And the owner is a chef. So Sylvia is really interested in the culinary space, and they do a lot of farm to table type dinners. They have an event coming up that features herbs and teaching about different herbs and tasting different herbs in various dishes. They have a beautiful barn that's used for a lot as a venue for all sorts of events, and is even used in music videos and filming of things as well. So a really interesting operation. So I wanted to kind of give you a tour. There's so many other types of operations, to think about. There's a lot going on with on-farm lodging right now. Everywhere, thing from providing primitive camp spaces to glamping opportunities to Airbnb type accommodations. More going on in the dark sky tourism. Folks looking to really get out and look at the stars in a place where there's no light to interrupt that view. So lots of different ways that you can utilize your space and your facilities and incorporate your products with that. So if you're thinking that agritourism is for you, I want to walk you through kind of 10 major steps, considerations to take as you're analyzing your idea and developing your plan and your enterprise. So most folks that are interested in agritourism or any business have to consider profitability in order to make that go for them. That's often a goal if we're investing our time and money in it. It sometimes is not, I have found, but most of the time it is. So in order to be profitable, our income needs to exceed our expenses. And some of the major factors that come into play with that are things like your ability to manage costs. Costs are it's really easy to spend a lot of money quickly. And we find in these operations that we work with, everything takes about 5 times as much time and 5 times as much money as we think it's going to do to get something going and operating. So it's really important to kind of estimate what your costs are going to be and manage to keep those under control. I'm kind of working on a little diet myself, and I read that it's really hard to outrun a bad diet, right? I can't, if I eat as many calories as I would like, it's just impossible for me to go out and run those calories off or exercise those calories off. And that's the same with the business. If we just incur too many costs, it's going to be virtually impossible for us to make enough income to cover those. We've got to think about that. We need to manage our production quality and efficiency. So the quality of the products and services that we offer has got to be high quality and consistently high quality for us. We need to price for profit, and pricing is a big challenge. And a lot of times what folks do in pricing is go figure out what everybody else is charging and either charge that or just above that or just below that. And while competition pricing is important, we also have to figure out what are our costs, because our costs could be double what the neighbors are for some reason. What are people willing to pay for that, and what are our goals? So there's a lot that goes into pricing. So we want to price strategically. We have to achieve some minimum level of sales volume in our business in order to even hope to reach profitability. And that's going to be different for different folks depending upon your costs and some other things. So when we start a business and don't open our doors, or haven't opened our doors yet, we have zero revenue, zero sales. And so we've got to be able to ramp that up, entice people to come, entice people to buy. And then we need to provide them that excellent product and service so that they will come again and they will tell others. So we need to build repeat customers. And hopefully with agritourism, you can get them to come more than once in the same season or once in the same year and be repeat customers across your season, across your year, and hopefully across years as well. And then finally, we have to manage risk. Farmers are typically very well understand that there's a lot of risk in farming, and there's a lot of risk in any business and in agritourism. So understanding what those risks are and managing them so that if we prevent things from going wrong when we can, and when they do go wrong, hopefully we can prevent that from causing our business to fail. So we really need to start analyzing and developing our agritourism business with our vision and our goals, and developing a plan so that we can put that plan into action in a proactive manner, and try to make the mistakes on paper ahead of time, and be aware of challenges we may face as we move forward. And hopefully that will increase our potential for success in the business. So let's get into these 10 tips or steps for getting started. I really encourage everyone to start out with a significant amount of time in researching agritourism and tourism, researching the demand for local foods, visiting agritourism operations far and wide. You don't get on the road, go out and visit, call ahead, ask to talk with folks, network with other operators across the country if you can, attend professional development events, workshops, conferences, tours related, and I'll give you some tips on where to find those as well, and really try to identify opportunities that where you think would match with your resources and interests, challenges that have been faced, and threats to business types, product and service ideas, attraction ideas, information that would help you understand the market situation, how consumers think, what kind of competition or what kind of activities are already exist, and how you could complement that. Different business management concepts. We learn so much from operators, anything from, oh, here are some steps to take to prevent your employees from stealing money from you, or here are some steps that we take to do this or that. So how to manage your business. Right now, it's how to find people that want to work and will be employed by our businesses. This stage helps you figure out what kind of resources are available for information or funding or insurance, and vendors for products. And this is a great question that I like to ask people, and I like to have people teach at our conferences. I'll ask a producer that has a lot of really good experiences, what do you know now that you wish you would have known then? Looking back, if you would have had several pieces of information when you started, how would that have helped you? And so that can be really valuable to ask. Once you've taken some time to kind of get your bearings and get your ideas flowing and see what's going on out there, then I'll encourage people to really take a look at the mirror and say, okay, I've seen what it takes for some of these folks to be successful. I've seen what the market looks like. I have more information. Do I want this? And do I have what it takes to do this? Because it takes a lot of energy and time and skill with it, and really need to be honest with yourself with that. And then also figure out, based on what you've learned, do you think that there's a need or desire out there in the marketplace that's not being met that you can fulfill with your skills and with your farm resources available? The next step I encourage folks to do is to investigate the regulations. And this is often surprising, and it's still even surprising to me now. there are a wide variety of regulations that may come into play with any business, but with an agritourism business as well. So this is just kind of a small, this is a list of several that we could think of with some examples. I mentioned my definition of agriculture in the past as kind of a informal definition. But the definition of agriculture or agritourism within your state statute can have a lot of impact on whether you can even have this type of operation on your land if your land is zoned agriculture. So that is a really big hurdle that we need to check into. And for Tennessee folks, I have some information that can help with that. Some states have an agritourism liability law that limits the liability of farm agritourism operations that are on farms in case somebody is hurt because there are inherent risks to agriculture. There are business license and tax regulations, sales tax regulations. Another one that gets folks a lot are employment regulations, especially if they have a farm and they have farm worker employees. The regulations for employees for farms that are doing, agricultural production are different than other employment regulations in most cases. And so when you have employees that are no longer doing agricultural production, but they're doing things related to the tourism side or the retail sales side, then that's a different set of regulations. And there's has to be tread carefully with that. There are building and fire codes in many cases, or food service codes if you're into concessions or have a cafe. In Tennessee, there's amusement device regulations for some slides over a certain height, or wagon rides, or barrel train rides and zip lines. There's USDA animal exhibitor license. So just for an example, there's a lot of regulations. So trying to figure out which ones relate to you, what those require, and what the costs are associated with that, or if it's going to impede you anyway from doing what you may hope to do on your farm, is really important to find out early. Interestingly, the National Ag Law Center did a study about recent agritourism litigation in the United States, and they expected to find that the biggest litigation was related to consumer liability, like people getting hurt. But it actually is more related to land use, so the zoning and planning and that sort of thing. And so figuring that out for your operation is really important. The fourth step is to identify your niche. And so it's really easy to go out and say, well, my neighbor's doing this, I can do it better, or I can do that too, and just try to do the exact same thing. But that's not what I want you to do. That's not a recipe for success. So don't take the cookie cutter approach. Go out and look for your niche. How can you complement what's already there? And in that way, then help everybody in the industry. How can you be unique or authentic or something completely new in demand that isn't being met out there? So identify your niche, your place within the market. The fifth step is to identify your target audience. Who is your ideal customer out there? What are their specific needs and preferences? What are they looking for? And then everything else that you can find about them. How do they make purchasing decisions? Where are they looking to find information? What information do they want before they go someplace? What are they willing to pay? Who is influencing them? So that you can develop your enterprise specifically to meet the needs and wants of the people who are going to be the ones to spend the most with you, purchase the most of your product, and become your best customers. The sixth step is to work hard to create a high quality customer experience. We want to, if we remember the raw commodity product to a good, to a service, to the experience, we really want to look about where can we intersect our farm products and other products that we might sell, the services associated with those, and the environment, the ambiance, and the activities to do. So if we could work to create ways for visitors just to be at the farm, to breathe, to get out of their regular zone and to enjoy themselves, create things for visitors to do while they're at the farm, and the longer you can keep them there, the typically more time that they'll spend and money they'll spend at concessions in the gift shop. Create opportunities for visitors to learn, to have fun, to buy product, and then create opportunities for visitors to share their experiences with you and with others. We have a publication on creating the customer experience that may be helpful, so I wanted to put that link in here for you. I'm so sorry. Number 7 is to connect with customers, and really not any customer, with those ideal customers within your target audience. Some ways to do this, and I'm going to credit Amy Ladd, who was on our teaching team for the larger workshop, because many of these came from her. These suggestions from Lucky Ladd Farms is to invest in high quality photos. And I'm going to add video with this. When we can put images and video in front of customers on social media and in other places, that really is very powerful. Tell your story. People want authenticity. They want relationship. And so being able to share your story and connect with people that way is really important. Develop an effective website to show what you have to offer and provide all the information in a really easy place is extremely helpful. This is Amy's word, or Amy's phrase in particular: dominate social media. Social media is extremely valuable in this realm with most target audiences. And so being really good at social media platforms where your audience is really important. And encourage customer photos and reviews as well, can be extremely valuable. I would also add, I didn't put this on here, but finding a way to connect once you have a customer with them directly through email or text can also be extremely valuable. Number 8 is to provide excellent customer service. And this means recruiting folks who are committed to customer service and training folks in how to provide excellent customer service for those customers. Getting people to come back and be those repeat customers is extremely important, as we saw in the slide about profitability, and service is vital to that. As well as you are recruiting cheerleaders. Oftentimes when you provide excellent customer service, you give them something wonderful to talk about and share with their friends when you do that. And certainly the other way, and even more so when things do not go well. Our 9th step is to assess and manage risk. And this is one thing that folks are, this is not the most fun part for most folks of business planning or for running a business, is trying to think of all the things that can go badly and all the time and money we might have to put towards making sure those things don't happen, or cleaning up the mess if it does. But risk management is vitally important. And while we often think about legal risk being laws and regulations or having injury to a customer employee, those are certainly important risks to understand. There are a whole slew of other risks that we really need to think about. Human resource risk, for example, when a key a family member in the business, or even not even without the business, if they're death or divorce going on in a family or with a key employee, that that can be very detrimental to a business. We've worked with folks in both of those cases. Also, just disagreement between siblings or spouses or parents and children within a business, that causes a lot of problem. Or an employee that has a lot of responsibility. Maybe they leave the business, and so making sure that information is shared across more than one person knows how to do things, can be really helpful. Business interruption and production risks sometimes can be very similar in agriculture. Weather, in agritourism, if you're open, 6 weekends in the fall and it rains on the third weekend, October, that's typically your biggest weekend. That can be make or break for your business. So how do we stretch out that crowd, stretch out our revenue stream? For example, a natural disaster, road construction, global pandemic wasn't on this list, but probably should be now. Financial risks. What if you have a damage or loss of personal property, or you're not getting in enough revenue when those bills come due, or you aren't able to attract as many customers as you had hoped when getting started, or your neighbor down the road starts up doing exactly what you are doing. Those are all types of risks that we need to think about a little bit. In managing risk, we can work to reduce, transfer, accept, or avoid that risk. So with reducing that, we might implement preventative measures like safety considerations or theft prevention. We might transfer risk to another party by buying insurance. We might avoid risk by choosing not to do something. For example, maybe zip lines or bonfires are a little bit too dangerous on your risk meter, so you're just going to avoid those. To accept risk, you might say, okay, we understand that we have some risk and we've done what we can to reduce and transfer it. We're going to move forward anyway, but we're going to have some extra cushion here in our emergency fund in case we have some damage to a property. We can pay for that insurance deductible, as an example. With agritourism, there's a lot of legal risk, as we mentioned a little bit before, and I've just listed a few here. Business structure choice, trademark, these are some risk management strategies. So trademarking your business name or signature product names, register your domain name for your website and make sure you keep that up to date. Making sure you work with an attorney on rental and lease agreements, providing warning signs if those are required by your liability law. Consider waivers in certain circumstances, making sure you have a safety protocol and training, as well as an emergency response plan in case somebody gets sick or hurt on the farm, and an incident reporting system so you can write down and record the information you need from that. And of course, several different kinds of insurance. My 10th tip for you, and a thing that I hope that you'll think about when you're analyzing and developing your operation, is to take into consideration how you're going to take care of yourself, your family, and your employees, and all of those relationships. This is a challenging business. People work hard. They work long hours. It can be stressful in lots of different ways. Some farms have decided, look, we're closing Monday and Tuesdays. We are closed. We are not, so they take some days of the week, even through their busy season, to be able to catch up or take a nap or spend some time with their children or whatever it is. So try to ask about ways that people do that, and in your research phase, and really make sure that you're taking care of your physical and your emotional, mental, spiritual health, whatever it is that for you. As far as resources go, we've gone through a lot, and thankfully I think there's help out there for folks who are interested in developing businesses. Your state departments of agriculture and tourism oftentimes offer ways that you can help market. There's some great industry associations out there. NAFMA is an international agritourism group that does great educational and networking things for farmers, as well as your kind of state associations. And don't forget your universities and extension opportunities. So Bethany, I think I'm down to the wire here. I get excited about agritourism and try to put everything in here. We do have a lot of resources on our website, and encourage folks to check those out, or feel free to email if you have questions after tonight.
Yeah, so if anyone has any questions and they want to put them in, I already see one. Okay, so Dakota asked, was there an increase in most agritourism operations like there was with U-Pick operations throughout the pandemic? And do you see the popularity decreasing as more people become more comfortable with traveling further from home due to COVID restrictions being lifted?
I will say the word that I heard, I guess, in agritourism meetings, that was that that folks had a lot of business and did well during COVID. I will say that some folks figured out how they can have fewer customers and be more profitable and have less stress on them, right? So they have done some strategies to because they're oftentimes giving their customers a better experience because there's not so many people there at one time. It's a little bit difficult to see. I wish I had that crystal ball. Don't we all? Tim Woods, we could really use that crystal ball to know what's going to happen in the future. I think, though, that they're, knowing that I think people are valuing local farmers in many cases more so, because when they went to the grocery stores and there was no food there, they understood better about, wow, having farms here is really important, right? And learning about food and wellness and things are important. So I don't know. And we have so many people moving in here a day, like 100 people a day to Nashville and 100 people to Murfreesboro a day. And it's just astronomical. So I think there's a lot of potential still.
Yeah, I agree. I agree in Kentucky as well.
Okay.
Probably not 100 people a day into our cities, but it is growing exponentially. And so I see it just getting bigger and bigger. Speaking of Tim Woods, Tim asked, any tips for managing a high surge of need in seasonal labor? Seems like a key bottleneck for growth. And we did touch a little bit on this yesterday during the to have good employees, be a good employer talk, but it wasn't agritourism specific, and agritourism has such a need for seasonal labor. So do you have any tips for that?
Oh, it is such a challenge, I will say. And I'm glad that you're recording, because I missed last night and I really want to go back and watch those sessions. So thank you for that. As far as seasonal labor, I think there are some ways to tap some things. There are a lot of teachers maybe who are retired. Some teachers are retiring early in this part of the woods, and I think that group is a good place to start. Some folks look for work from home moms who might be able to come during the week and help with school field trips. Some folks are looking toward groups like school clubs to be able to come and help park. And it's kind of like a fundraiser for them or in certain areas. So other operations are promoting through their social media, just like they're promoting to consumers about what a fun workplace that we are, and that sort of thing. Some are getting creative in how they're offering bonuses. If you come and work the whole season and meet these things, then you're going to get a large bonus at the end. So some perks like that. But it is challenging.
I'm sure you've seen as well with all of the different realms that you work in that, it's not, money is wonderful. Money is 100% needed to live and to pay your rent or mortgage. But it's not everything to employees per se. You need to have a good working environment. You need to have other benefits and perks so that, they're not just coming in for a paycheck. So yes, very interesting. Speaking about money, how would you recommend folks figure out pricing for their agritourism? You touched on that a little bit, but just if you have any tips aside from finding competitors around you.
Yeah, and that's hard. Definitely trying to determine, what your costs are associated with putting on and that's also hard because of the different levels of, what kind of agritourism thing are you pricing. But if there's costs involved, you certainly want to understand that to make sure that you're pricing above that and for what your goals are associated with that. Definitely looking at competition and think broadly about the competition. So, if you're a pumpkin patch, you're not just looking at the pumpkin patch, but you're looking at the zoo and the movie theater and the skating rink and the museums, what all are competition more broadly. Because it really is competition. They're choosing whether to come to you on Saturday or go do something else. So, a lot of times farmers, I'm going to charge you $5 to come in and play all day. Well, the people are spending $25 for a ticket to go to the zoo for 2 hours, or I haven't been to a movie in so long. What is it? Movie ticket, $15. I have small children. I never get out. And so think more broadly and think about the value you're offering and the experience that you're offering. And who people are and maybe what you think they're willing to pay. And then, a lot of our agritourism operators in the last couple of years have increased their prices to get to a point where some customers won't come because they are trying to, they can't handle or want to provide a better experience or needed to cut down capacity during COVID. So it's harder to experiment, with agritourism versus farmers market products where you can change it week to week. So that is a little bit more challenging. I'm hopeful that helps a little bit.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know a number of farmers or cut flower farmers, agritourism sites, a number of times I've seen will undervalue themselves and will undercharge what they could be charging. And so it's nice, even if you've been in the industry for 20 years, doing kind of a reevaluation and seeing what your costs are, especially over the past 2 years, especially the past year, past couple of months with costs rising so much. It's really important to assess where you're at. I will just ask you one more question. Sorry, go ahead.
Sure. I was going to say, and it's also an option to set a price. And then, if that is, you think that's too high, you can offer discounts, right? So you could offer coupons or specials associated with that or bundle. And a lot of folks are now offering different tiers. So here's a base value price and here's a mid-level. So you get admission plus this for this price and at least one more, right? So admission plus this plus plus up here for a premium, and most people then will buy the middle one. And so offering another strategy people are using to spread out is on days that are typically lighter attendance, admission for those days is less expensive than on Friday and Saturday, to encourage people to come earlier in the week that are more price sensitive.
Yes, or I have seen a number of agritourism sites here in Kentucky that are doing kind of memberships for the season. So it's kind of unlimited. Obviously, it's limited to like your family or however many within the guidelines, but it's a nice way to get that chunk of money at the beginning of the season or whenever they decide to buy it.
My mom bought my family one Black Friday sale for a Christmas gift. I am so excited.
It's so nice. And there are a lot of people that will get that for their small children. And that was big during the pandemic. The few farms that I saw did that people would just come to bring their kids out so that they could get outdoors and not be stuck inside. So they were coming every day if they could. So the last question that I wanted to ask was, you talked a bit about community and things like, NAFTMA, things like that. Do you recommend not necessarily emulating a competitor, but if there's someone, across the state or someone in another area that you like what they're doing a really good job, not emulating, but taking tips and tricks from that or using that as a model almost?
Absolutely. And that happens a lot. Even in extension, we call that rip off and duplicate. There's no need in reinventing the wheel, but certainly, like you said, from farther away is better. Learning what works for others, and what the key there is, though, making sure that fits your niche, your target audience, and whatever ambiance you're trying to create for your farm. So, we have operations that are corn themed, and we have operations that are, horse themed or cow themed, or whatever theme it is that you're going with. You can put your own spin on things. For sure, there's lots of that going on. And that's some of the value of going and visiting places and going to some of these professional development events.
That was great. Yeah, I completely agree. That's something I talk about with farms sometimes is, when it comes to digital marketing, if you see something that you like or something that piques your interest, take notes on that and don't copy it, but try and do something that would pique your interest. And I think that's great. Thank you so much, Megan. This was wonderful. If we have any more questions come in or anything, I'll be sure to message you, but everyone should have seen your email at the end there, and we'll be sure to send that out. And thank you so much.
It was my pleasure. Thank you all.
Okay, so up next, we have Corinna Bench of My Digital Farmer and Shared Legacy Farms. She runs a 400-person CSA in Northwest Ohio with her husband. My Digital Farmer came about from her own journey of online marketing their farm. It was created to help farmers learn the marketing fundamentals and instill confidence in marketing their products. She runs a successful podcast and blog and has developed a CSA Academy that covers topics for beginners and experts alike. Today, Corinna will be presenting on the weekly email tips for writing engaging newsletters that customers look forward to. Corinna, the floor is yours.
Well, hi, everyone. So very glad to be here. Let me get my screen shared. Give me 1 second, see if I can pull this off. All right, are we good? Can you guys see that?
Looks wonderful.
All right. All right, we're talking about the weekly email newsletter, how to write them so people want to actually read them. And let me see if I can, oh, there we go. Sorry, I got to figure out how to, let me just minimize that for a second. Okay, there we go. Can you imagine somebody feeling this? I can't wait to read this email. This is something that I actually get written back to me in emails all the time from some of my customers. They actually tell me this. I love your emails. And it's such a great feeling when you hear that, because we spend a lot of time writing these. On the flip side, I remember the days when I would write emails and I hated doing it because I felt like I didn't know what I was doing and I didn't think they were well written. So today, I want to try and help you get to this place where you have customers that are doing air guitar and saying, I can't wait to read your next email. So I would love to see, I don't know if people are in a talkative mood, but I would love to see in the chat, rate your confidence with email marketing on a scale of 1 to 5. I'm kind of curious what people would say. Let me see if I can pull up the chat here. So everybody go to the chat right now. Just give me a scale of 1 to 5. 2, 3, 1, 0, 2. Oh, geez. Okay. 1, 1, 1. Well, that's why you're at this session, apparently. Awesome. All right. Let me get rid of that again. Okay. What do you think of when I say the words email newsletter? Okay, I just want you to picture in your mind when I say that phrase, because I think this is part of the issue that I'm going to try and overcome today. Do you think of something like this? This was a screenshot that I took just from a few days ago from my Gmail. This is typically what I think of when someone says a email newsletter. It's one of these sort of formatted looking things that literally looks like a newsletter that you could print off. But that is not what I'm going to be talking about today. You can certainly structure it this way, but I'm going to challenge you to think about an email newsletter in a slightly different way. And here is why I'm so passionate about teaching about the weekly email and how it fits into email marketing. This happened because of a weekly email. This was revenue that I earned in one day after I sent out my weekly email to my list. And I actually got that amount almost again over the next 2 days for, I don't even remember what I was selling in November 11th. And the reason why I can get these kinds of results is because I have cultivated a connection with my people on my email list. And that's what I want to help you guys learn how to do today. It is a skill for sure. And just like anything else, the more reps you do, the better you get at it. But I'm going to kind of show you the pathway there. Now, you guys have already heard my introduction. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here, but I do want you to know that I am a CSA farmer. I've been doing CSA farming for 14 years. We run a traditional CSA. And I would say about 80% of our income comes from the CSA, 80–85%. We have a little bit of wholesale, and we're trying to grow actually our retail side of our business through our online store. And I'm using the weekly email to try and cultivate that connection as well. But I have an online course called CSA Quick Start. But my big claim to fame, the thing I love to do the most, is my podcast called the My Digital Farmer Podcast, where I teach marketing to farmers. If you don't know about it, I would love it if you would take a look at that and listen in. It's a great place to go and kind of learn the ropes. So here's what you're going to discover today. You're going to discover the goal of the weekly email. P.S. It's not really to sell your stuff, although that does end up happening. You're going to learn the parts of a basic email and how to optimize them so people open them. You're going to learn the one thing you must ace to get someone to open your emails. You're going to learn what to talk about in an email and what probably not to talk about. I think that's probably the part you're waiting for the most. And we're also going to talk about the right way to format your email. That's going to be at the very end so that people will keep reading it. That's really huge. So we're going to spend some time on it at the end. So I'm curious, how many of you are afraid that by sending a weekly email, you are going to come off as salesy? I want to hear in the chat. If this is a thumbs up, say yup or yes, or I want to see it. 100,000%, says Sabrina. Yes, yes. Very common feeling. And you know, guys, I still feel that way a little bit. I'm not going to lie. There is this fear that we carry around. We associate email with being salesy. And I think this is one of the reasons that we avoid learning it or embracing it as part of our marketing strategy, because all we've ever seen it used for in our own inbox is to sell, sell, sell. And that's probably because you aren't seeing a lot of great email copywriting coming through your inbox. And I'm going to show you some examples of what it could look like. The goal of email marketing is actually to assist in moving your customers or your prospects, they might not even be customers yet, from one stage of what we call the customer value journey to the next. That is the goal. You're trying to move people along through their buying journey. And here is the customer value journey. This is the marketing framework that I teach to my students and to on the podcast. Every single one of these boxes gets talked about at some point in various different ways. I'm going to give you this super quick tour because I have a lot of slides to get through. But everybody starts out completely unaware that you even exist. They're not even on this graph. They're in the bottom left corner. And then slowly over the course of time, if you do your job well as a marketer, they become aware that you exist. Then through some of your other marketing, they might actually start to engage with you. Maybe they start talking to you at the market, or maybe they start DMing you on social media, or they start watching your videos on social media. Then the all important thing is they subscribe. You finally get them to subscribe and get onto your email list. And those are the right people. Those are the people that you want to eventually get to buy stuff from you, right? You find a way to get them on your email list. And the reason I have that circled is because that's where this journey of email marketing begins. Once they're on your list, then we can begin to use email marketing and this weekly email that we're chatting about, this newsletter, to help some of these other boxes happen, to move the customer along into the next stage of the customer value journey. So once they subscribe, then our job is to get them to actually come and buy something, or go to our store, meet us at the market, or buy our CSA, or come to our agritourism farm, whatever, right? Once they've converted, then we want to excite them. We want to give them an amazing experience. The customer experience of the product itself needs to wow them. Again, email marketing, the weekly email can help accomplish that. And then we can even use email marketing to get them to go into the next box, which is the ascend phase. And that's where they begin to buy more and more and more things. They ascend your ladder of products. This is called the profit maximizer stage of your business, because this is where you want all your people to end up. When people start buying multiple things from you, that's when you start actually making a profit. Okay, so in all of those 4 boxes that have little red brackets around them, this is where the power of email marketing can really come to play. And we're going to chat about that in detail now. My point was, though, that I want to show you email marketing's job is to move people through one stage to the next. And I want you to think about relationships, like the way that we build relationships in real life is very similar to what we kind of try to do with email, believe it or not. Relationships grow in stages, right? Like you don't, I'm going to use this random image of like you walk into a bar, okay, and you see someone across the room that they catch your attention, right? You take a second glance and now you're like, I want to try and figure out how to talk to them. And you slowly get a little closer and you find a way to say hi. And then maybe you buy them a drink, and then maybe you have a conversation. And if that goes well, you actually get their phone number, right? And then maybe you actually get to go out on another date with them, right? There are these different, there's a progression of the relationship that happens in stages. You don't jump from, hey, can I get your number, to I want to marry you in like 1 second. There is a natural progression in the journey. And it's the same way with the customer value journey. It's the same way with email. We use email to help us move through this process of building a relationship with our prospects and turning them into clients. And we really have to honor this process that relationships require. They don't grow super fast. We have to let time do its magic, and we have to show up and continue to talk to them. So let me reframe how you think about email, because the weekly emails job, this newsletter that we're going to talk about, maybe it's a bi-weekly email, okay? But this regular connection point that we're using the weekly email for, its job is to create connection. There are a lot of different kinds of emails and email marketing, and they all have their different place and function. But this weekly email that I'm chatting about with you today, this newsletter email, this is designed to create connection so that you can promote other things later when you have a promotional email, right? So you can use email for other purposes, but its job is primarily to connect. So how do we do that? I want you to stop thinking of the weekly newsletter as a place to sell. Instead, I want you to think of it as a place to connect with your people, primarily through storytelling, which I will show you in a minute. So there's kind of in the email marketing space, Gary Vaynerchuk, excuse me, talks about this a lot. There's this 3-to-1 rule. And this is this rule that states that you want to aim for this goal of having 3, what I call relational emails for every promotional email that you write. In other words, you really want to spend more of your time when you're writing these emails, building connection, giving things away, being generous, adding tips and tricks, telling stories to build relationships. And that promotional element is a very soft sell, or if you have an overtly promotional email, it's not happening all the time. It's not the thing that you say every single week. And I'm going to show you what this looks like in practice. We're going to have lots of examples, don't worry. Okay, so let's just back up and let's talk about the anatomy of a highly engaging and converting email. There are 7 key parts and they all have their place. And the very first one is the great subject line. Okay, so you need to have a subject line. That's that very first thing. Actually, I don't write it first. I usually write it last. But this is what gets the person to open the email in the first place. Now, let's just remind ourselves how these look. Okay, this is a screenshot of my personal inbox in Gmail. All right, now just look at the subject lines right now. And which of these emails would I probably open first? So I circled a couple of them to help you kind of decide which one would you probably actually open. Notice I haven't opened very many of them. Do you see that? They're all still black. And hopefully you can see that the one that says belated happy birthday, dear Corinna, so sorry about being late for your birthday. That's from my godmother. All right. I see that it's from Jimmy Cassens. Actually, it's my godfather, but my godmother's writing under his address. And immediately I see that and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to read it because it's from someone I know. It's a letter. It's personal, right? And all of these other ones, the subject line is written in such a way that I can clearly tell it's spammy, it's promotional, it's either transactional, like new bank statement available. You know, that I'm just not super impressed and I don't really want to open that. So how we write the subject line really matters, and it takes some practice learning how to do this well. But this is what gets someone to open. If you don't do this part right, they're not even going to read the thing that you took all that time to write on the inside. So this is worth getting better at. So here are some examples of some of my really highly converting or highly engaging subject lines. Karen Ayers' legendary roasted tomato sauce. So this is something I sent to my CSA community. They know who Karen Ayers is. She is like a legend in our group. She's always got amazing recipes in our Facebook group. Case study, how one CSA member uses Carrot Tops. Farmer Jed was accepted into ANSAT and what that means for us. ANSAT is the aviation school in Toledo. 3 lies we tell ourselves as CSA members. Did you get your hubby to eat those dang beets? Right? Do you see what I mean? Like the subject line is curiosity driven. It's kind of tongue in cheek. Some of them are questions. And a person reads these and they immediately can tell, oh, this isn't like those other emails in my inbox. This is kind of going to be a personal note with a fun little story or message in it. You can just tell by the subject line. Are you guys seeing that? So how do we write these great subject lines? I have a few rules of thumb that I tend to fall back onto when I sit down and write this part. First of all, look at your own inbox and just pay attention to the subject lines that draw you in. Every now and then, you might have somebody that sends you an email that's actually good at writing email copy. And just pay attention to them. Like, I love to get like 7 Sons, for example, they have an amazing email copywriting gig. So get on their email list and just start reading their emails. They do a great job with this too. Pay attention to the people who know how to do this well, but also look at what are the things I tend to open just personally. And is there a certain kind of format? Like I do a lot of my subject lines all in lowercase, even though I should technically capitalize the sentence at the beginning, but it just looks more informal and looks more real that way. Pique curiosity, use a hook in your subject lines. So sometimes this is where you ask a question in the subject line itself that you're going to answer in the email. So for example, how one CSA member uses Carrot Tops. Somebody might be like, well, I want to know, you can use Carrot Tops? What is it? What? Right? And they're going to click that and try and read it. Another way is just to summarize in a nutshell. Sometimes the stuff you need to send in this weekly email is just like genuinely very important information. And you don't need to try to be clever. You can just say, look, I've got 7 tickets left for the field to table dinner. Okay. Urgency, scarcity, let's go, let's move. And you don't want to make it confusing or hard for them to figure out what's inside there. So if it's important, just be clear and summarize it. Sometimes I'm thinking through the lens of breaking news. So if there's something really important or big that just happened, I will put that into the headline. It functions sort of like a newspaper. So the fact that my oldest son, Farmer Jed, we call him Farmer Jed, was accepted into the Toledo Aviation School a few months ago, like that was so huge. I was super proud of that. And I wanted everyone in my community to know about it. Sharing secrets, letting them know that there's a secret or an insider tip on the inside. So how to get your hubby to eat those dang beets. That's a great example. And then just in general, I would say that, because I'm often asked, well, is there a list of like formulas? And there are headline formulas out there, but I feel like as soon as you start using a formula, people get wise to the formula. I just think that you need to change it up. The most important thing is to keep it relevant. So, these are some of the lenses through which I look at how to create a great subject line. And it's not always a question. Sometimes it's kind of an announcement. Sometimes it's a curiosity piquing headline. It sort of depends. Just change it up and don't feel like you always have to follow the same formula. Okay, so the subject line is part 1. The second element of a really engaging email that you need to nail is the sender profile name, believe it or not. And I know you're like, what, really? But yeah, we need to talk about this. Is your sender profile name going to be formal or personable? And let me show you the difference. So the sender name shows up in your inbox and it makes a difference, doesn't it? Like just by looking at what you see here on the left on the screen here, you can, I mean, I feel like right there, I'm definitely gonna open the one from Jimmy Cassens because that's a specific person that I know. All the other ones are labeled institutions, like your local library or American Express. Like I can tell that's being written by an organization, not a specific person, and it just has a different feel to it, right? So you get to decide what your sender name is going to be. And maybe you do want it to be very informal, or excuse me, formal, and you want it to be the name of your farm. But maybe you want it to say Farmer Kate or Farmer Jed, right? Or just your name, because that feels different. That feels like you're getting an email from a friend. So just think about that and ask yourself, would you be inclined to open one over the other just based on the sender name? You have some power here. And then as we move into our third element, I want you to notice the words after the subject line. Okay, so the subject line is in bold. And this is what is called the hook. People can actually see the first few words of the actual email itself. And that's powerful stuff. You want to use that real estate wisely. Somebody is making decisions about whether or not they're going to open that email, partly based on the first 7 to 10 words of your email. So think about how can you write that first sentence to pull them in. Now, this real estate is even smaller on a mobile device. So if somebody's checking their email on their phone, they're going to see even fewer words. So don't waste those first few lines with fluffy language trying to get into the email, right? So we'll show you some examples here. The point here is to remember that your customer is making split-second decisions about whether they're going to open your email based on those first 3 factors alone: the subject line, the sender name, and those first 3 words that you put in the first sentence. So those are powerful elements. If you're trying to get your open rate higher, like you can spend some time on those first 3 elements and make a big difference. Okay, so let's talk about that first line in the email. I call this the attention grabbing hook, the hook. The first sentence of your email definitely matters. And I like to think of this as creating an open loop that will get them to keep reading. So if you're a big reader like I am, you know the power of those well-written chapters. You get to the end of the chapter and it's this sentence that leaves you hanging and you have to start reading the next one, right? This is kind of what we're trying to do with a hook when we write that first sentence of our weekly newsletter or email. We've got to give them a reason to keep going and intrigue them to keep going. So let's look at some examples. So I have a few different themes here, and then I give you some examples of what it can look like. These are actually taken from some emails that I went through as I prepared this presentation. This is the first line of one of my emails. Has this ever happened to you? You reach back into the back of your fridge and find an old produce bag and inside is some old lettuce all squishy and yucky. Okay. Another one, 2 years ago, I made a rather remarkable discovery as a farmer's wife, ... I found out I don't hate kale. Just an interesting sentence. Like, I feel like that opens a loop. All right. And the theme here is that I'm trying to empathize with a common problem. So sometimes the hook is you're trying to figure out what is something that my customer is going to read or my email person's going to read and be like, oh my gosh, I have totally had that happen to me. Or that is a problem that I have too. What do you do about it? And then you begin to tell the story in the rest of the email. They keep reading because they want to know how you solved it. And now you've created empathy. You've created a connection with them because you've just found common ground. Okay, so this is an example of kind of opening your email with a hook. Sometimes it's sharing secret knowledge, like that first line. That hook will hint that I have some sort of secret that I'm about to unveil in this weekly email. So here's an example. Many people don't know is that there is a best time to buy the corn in bulk. But I'm about to let you in on the secret. Are you ready? Okay, so by the way, I'm curious in the chat, do you guys know what is the best time to buy corn in bulk? Let me see if you know. Jot your answer down. Pick a month. It's a month in the year. And nobody is writing anything. June, August. Any other guesses? September. Okay, the answer, at least according to us here at this farm, is August, maybe going into September a little bit. And the reason is because that's when we have the most daylight. And so you're going to have the longest ears in that month. So since people are buying the corn by the number of ears, they're getting the biggest bang for their buck if they buy in the month where the ears are the biggest, right? So that's like a fun fact. Okay. Another example here, asking a question, letting that be the very first sentence of your email. So when can CSA samplers sign up for next year? If I start my email out with that, and anybody who's a CSA sampler has been asking that question, they're a 4-week trial member, and they're like, oh my gosh, please tell me, I want to know, right? That's going to pull them in, and they're going to want to keep reading the answer. Or how do you get your hubby to eat the beets? All those wives out there who probably also hate beets are like chomping at the bit to read the rest of this email. Okay, so sometimes just starting your email with a fun question gets them to keep going, and that's the goal, right? Like the subject line's job is just to get them to open the email. The hook's job is to get them to keep reading it. So, and then finally, here's another kind of theme you can think through as you're trying to find that first hook. Point to an image that's going to show up a little bit lower down in your email that's relating to the story you're telling. Okay, so I just recently sent this one out a few days ago, and that's my husband holding a really ugly trophy that's been trapped in my bedroom for 2 years because he won the NCAA tournament thing that he does with his family, where they like vote on which basketball team's going to win. Somehow he won. And then COVID happened, and so we just had this really ugly trophy for so long. Anyway, I told that whole story. But yeah, sometimes you can kind of point to an image that's coming up later, and people are intrigued. They want to know the rest of the story. Okay, so that was the hook. Number 4, this is kind of the fourth part of a great email, is the body. This is the core message of the story and the meat of your email. And the goal of this section is to get them to want to take the desired action that you're going to ask them to do at the end of this email, okay? Which we'll get to in a minute. I don't want to jump ahead. One big tip here is that I want you to think about how your email should look and feel like a letter. Okay, I just want to, some of you might be doing more of like the newslettery formatted look kind of thing. I just want to challenge you to test out doing it more like a letter. I've had so many farmers who have made this switch and they've told me that it has done wonders for their open rate. This is what I'm talking about, okay? Like on the left, this sort of newslettery look versus the one on the right. Now, does the one on the right look all fancy pants? No, it's just text with a picture in it. And I know the one on the left looks all pretty, but it has a different feel, right? Like, doesn't the left one feel a little more corporate, a little more, I don't know, just more formal? And maybe that's what you're going for. And if so, keep doing that. But the one on the right feels like a letter, like someone's writing you a letter, and it just has a different feel to it. And it makes the person want to read it because it feels like something they got from their godmother, right? Not really, but you know what I mean. So what do I talk about in these letter type emails then? Okay. So I want to ask you guys, before I give you my big list here, what topics or types of content have performed really well for you? I want you to throw out your answers in the chat. Let's learn from each other, because I'm sure that some of you have written at least one fairly decent email that got some good results and people responded. And I would love to know, what did you talk about in that email? What was the topic? So if you have any ideas, please throw them into the chat right now. A farm update, a funny thing that happened on the farm, says Christy Welch. Yes. Stories for sure. Anything else? Any other element that you can think of that you think made a difference? Opening day for farmers market. Oh yeah, who's gonna be there? So if it's like a big event, right? Like opening day, people want to know that. Asking people to do a survey, money to award them. Good. Okay, like we're bribing them. I love it. Totally done that too. Okay, great. So let's talk through some of the topics that I do that I think work really well. Now, this is my default setting, the one I'm talking about here. And I find these to be the best performing ones. Telling a story, or as I call it, a parable that has some kind of an inspiring message. So I don't know how many of you guys know this, but I used to be, you probably don't know this, I used to be a youth minister in my former life before I married Kurt and moved to Ohio. And that's actually where we met, at my church. And so I was doing sermons, youth talks a lot. And man, I learned real quickly that people get bored when you just read from a script. And I had to so I just started telling stories. I would tell stories and I would try to find the nugget of wisdom in the story. And I would just have kids like leaning in and paying attention, and they would remember stuff if it was a story. So I learned the power of story early on. And I have used this now in email as well. So I have a couple of ways that I do this. So either I am paying attention all week long. Sometimes I'm doing a biweekly email, like in the off season, it might be biweekly. So in any case, I am paying attention to my week. And when something funny happens, or significant, or moving, or unusual, I just keep a mental note. Sometimes I even write it and type it out into my phone so I don't forget about it. And then at the end of the week, whenever it's time to sit down and write this email, I'm like, man, I got to tell that story about how the hawk got into my chicken coop, because I've never seen such a huge red-tailed hawk. Like, I've never seen that in my life. And I happen to have a picture of it too, so I was going to share that. And that was the content of the email, that I shared with people. But sometimes it's a story like this one, where my son Josiah, who was, I think he was 9. Yeah, it says he was 9. You can read this while I'm talking. he was 9 years old when he finally learned how to pump on a swing. And this was such a powerful moment for us because for 9 years, he would avoid going to the swings at recess at school because he was embarrassed. He just never learned. And when we would try to teach him, he was resistant, he would get frustrated, he would just quit. And then one day he's at grandma's house and Jed, that's his brother on the swing there, has the patience to teach him. And I don't know what happened, something clicked. And all of a sudden Josiah learned how to do it. And he was victorious, like just victorious about it. And they swung for 2 hours, like literally. And my husband and I, we were like crying. We were so excited because I actually was worried that my son would never know how to swing and that would just be super awkward when he was an adult someday. So this story, I shared this story, right? And at the end, I think I told some kind of little quip at the end, like, don't ever give up on your dreams or something like that, right? It was a tearjerker. And I had people write back and say, oh my gosh, this was so great. Okay, these are the kinds of things that build connection with your clients. Now, I tried to sell something in the PS. I had a little soft sell like, PS, there's a da-da-da-da in the online store this week, right? But that wasn't the focus of the email. This was. And what I'm trying to show you here is that what you write in the email doesn't always have to be about what am I selling this week. It can be things that are going on in your life. In fact, they should be, because those kinds of emails are the ones that connect you and bond you to your customer and for life so that they don't want to leave. And now they're looking for a way to support you. Okay. So often I will find these stories, like I said, by keeping track of the cool things that happen throughout the week. Sometimes I'll do it the opposite way, where I'll have something that I want to teach people or tell people, and then I find the story that will exemplify it. So for example, let's say that I wanted to teach people that learning how to master CSA takes time, and I just need them to understand that principle. So I told a story about my son Jed and how he joined a basketball team in 8th grade. He'd never played basketball in his life, didn't even know how to play the game, right? And he joined as an 8th grader, and he was awful at first. Like, his whole team was awful. He was really bad. And then he was frustrated, and we made him stay on the team anyway. And watching him over the course of that season get better and better and better, like, was so inspiring. And we had to help him see another goal. Like, winning was not the goal anymore. We had to find another goal that for him to focus on. And so I tied that into this story of like how, hey, you know what, learning CSA is a process, and you're going to hit a wall, and you cannot be surprised when that happens, and you have to push through and just do the reps and keep practicing, right? So that was an example of how I pulled them into that learning at the end. That was kind of the story that I told at the end. Okay, so sometimes it's backwards. Okay, another way that you can think about email topics is to share a new resource that you made, or maybe you did a video on your Facebook Live or something, or on Instagram, or anywhere. And you downloaded it and you put it onto YouTube, and then you share that link in your video, in your email. It could be a guide that you made, or an infographic, or just some kind of quick cheat sheet or worksheet that's going to help them, okay? Or maybe it's just a tip. So here's an example. This was actually part of my sales process too. I had made something called the Cocktail Diaries, and it was a bonus that I gave to people if they bought my CSA during the early bird period. And it was gorgeous. It was all the cocktails that had been shared by our CSA members that year in our Facebook group. So this is an example. I have a ton of things like this that I make in Canva, just little PDF guides. And you could give this away. Like, this could be the thing that you do in your weekly email. Hey, I have this awesome guide. I made it for you. Download it here. And maybe it's a cheat sheet on how to make pesto, right? So that's another topic for sure. You could pitch a product. Let's not forget that. There can be and should be an overtly promotional email from time to time, where you are just flat out trying to get people to buy stuff. Now, the problem is that we always have things that we want people to buy, right? Like, every week there's something we want people to buy. And so that's where I use the PS to do a soft sell for like the weekly regular things. But if I've got a big thing that I want people to know about, then I'm writing an entire email about it. So here, when our bulk canning tomatoes came online and they were ready to go and we needed to move them fast over a 2-week period, like, that's what the email was about. No bones about it. I am trying to sell bulk canning tomatoes. And I tried to give them some some guidance about the difference between Romas and globes and what they're used for. I think I gave them a cheat sheet too on how to, maybe how to can them. Can't remember, but yeah, so that's definitely another type of topic as well. If you have something to sell, occasionally do it. But remember that 3-to-1 rule, right? We don't want to just be constantly overtly promotional. Share news or updates or an announcement. This is a great example here. When Jed was accepted into the aviation school, I had a picture of the acceptance letter, and I talked about what happened when we went on a tour to the school. And my people ate this up because they love our family. They love watching our family grow up. And so for them to see this Jed, who's they've been following for the last 10 years, now get into this awesome school, like that was a big victory for all of us. So sometimes you're just sharing really cool announcements. It could be a big announcement about your farm as well. Opening day, right? So some of you are probably thinking, okay, I still need help helping me get started, what to write and what to put in the meat of the email. So I have this free resource. It's my email writing prompts. I think it's like 25 or so writing prompts that'll just get you going on what you could talk about. And you can grab that there. Just go to that, take a screenshot of this or go to that right now and grab it. It'll just come right to your inbox. Okay, the fifth element. So once we've got kind of our topic, we know what we want to talk about, we've written that out, and I'm going to give you some tips at the end about how to format the writing of this, because that's a big part of it. Okay, but we know what we're talking about. We've got our story, we've got our announcement. Every email, in my opinion, should have some kind of an image or graphic. Now, I break that rule sometimes, but the reason why is because it breaks up the text. Since I write my emails like in this letter format, I can't just have a bunch of words. I need to put images in there to kind of tell a story. And this is, I use ConvertKit, which actually allows me to, that's my email service provider. It actually allows me to upload a picture, and then I can edit the picture like within the email editor. So I can add arrows, I can write text on top of it, I can circle things, which is what I really like, because then I can kind of annotate the picture and make it interesting. So this is, I think, an important element. I try to find something that goes along with the story that I'm talking about. So over here on the left, there's a picture of my son, Jed. I think that's the one. Yeah, that's also talking about aviation school. Over here on the right, this was a GIF. Am I saying that right? GIF, I don't know. But it actually moved. And you can find these at giphy.com, GIPHY.com. And it's just some code that you stick right into your email, and it makes the image come alive. So somebody opens up the email and it's actually moving around, and that's kind of cool. And there's a lot of really funny ones. So that's another thought. So here's kind of a general formula that I teach to farmers that is pretty successful. What I tend to do, like my go-to and my fail-safe, if I'm not sure what to write about, is I will have some kind of video content that I've created that week on my social media channel, and I will upload that into YouTube, and then I will create a YouTube thumbnail for it. And that image is what goes into my weekly email. That becomes the weekly email image. Notice it actually has a little image of the play screen on it. And if they click on that image, it takes them to the YouTube video to watch it. So I can kind of tell a little bit of the story about what I want them to know in my email, but then I can link them off to the video to get more details. Like if they want to see how the Yang seeder works, like I'm going to try to give them the highlights in the email and teach them a little bit about seeding, but like you want to go see the full shebang, then here's where you can go watch, right? And that becomes the call to action, and it educates my customer and teaches them something cool about farming. So that's kind of the general formula. Notice that I have an image, I have one topic that everything revolves around in this case, and I have a call to action. That's the one thing I want them to do. And I have a lot of white space. I have very short sentences. We'll talk about that formatting in just a second. Okay, so we talked about the image. Number 6, there are 7 things in an email. We're coming to the end here. A clear call to action. So every single email should have a call to action. Ideally one call to action, not 3. You need to tell your customer very clearly what you want them to do, because it's not always obvious to them. You may think it is, but you've got to tell them just flat out. And there's lots of different calls to action. It's not always buy this product. that is probably what you will do most of the time, but sometimes it's, I want you to watch this video, click here and watch this video. Sometimes it's link to this blog post. Like if I have a more, and I do during the CSA season, I have a blog post that functions as a kind of my newsletter for the CSA members. And I will tell my CSA members in that weekly email, your CSA newsletter on the blog lives on the blog. Go, click on this link to go see all the recipes and all the details here. Okay. So sometimes it's go read the blog post. It could be grab this free resource. So if you're giving them a video to watch that's going to teach them a quick tip about how to cook something, or maybe it's a cheat sheet or an infographic, you're linking them off to where that is. It could be, hey, leave me a Google review. Here's the link to go leave me a Google review, or answer my survey. I know somebody mentioned that earlier, that they ask survey questions. Or maybe you ask a question. Maybe you really want to know the answer to one question. Maybe it's a scheduling thing, like I need to take a week off for the CSA, or no, here's one that I actually did once. If we skip Labor Day weekend for the CSA pickup, is that going to be okay? Like, I just wanted to get some feedback on that, right? And so I got a whole bunch of yeses and nos, and that kind of helped me know, like, was it a 60-40 split? Was it an 80-20? Like, where are we at? So sometimes getting them to answer question is the call to action. So you'll notice over here on the right, there's an image, but then there's like a link. I want you to download this cocktail diary if you want to grab it. Now, I always encourage people to try and limit the call to action to one thing. I realize that that's not always possible, especially in the heat of CSA season, when my CSA weekly email is kind of functioning as like a newsletter, and there's multiple pieces of information that I'm trying to pack into there. But most of the time, like in the off season, when I'm doing this weekly, bi-weekly email, I'm really trying to limit it to one thing, because I don't want to confuse them. I don't want their, their brain cells to be like burning up because they don't know what they're supposed to do. Okay, number 7, the last thing, every email should have a PS. Don't forget the postscript. And this is because most people scroll, they scan their email. If they actually open the email, what they do is before they start reading it, they quickly scan it. And then they go back up and start reading it. And so almost everyone will read the PS if you have a good one. And especially if you write good ones, they start to expect you to have a good one, and they'll look forward to reading the PS. So what those do is they open a loop. So there's a couple of ways that I tend to use them, actually 3 different ways that I use my PS, but here's an example of opening a loop. PS, in my next email, I share the one thing I wish someone had told me before I invested in a bunch of canning jars. Like, aren't you waiting now? Now you want to know, well, what's that one thing? Okay. This is what people do in those books that we read, right? That make us open the next chapter. We want a hook. So 3 different ways. I only put 2 here, but there's actually 3. How do you use the PS? What do you put in there? Well, you would reiterate the call to action. So sometimes you can just share that link again. If you want them to watch that video, bring it up again in the CTA. So if somebody doesn't actually read the entire message of the email, they just skim it, like, what's the one thing you need them to know and take action on? That's the thing you want to put in that PS again, because some of them aren't going to read all of that body of the email. So you want to make sure they got it, the message in a nutshell. You could open another loop like I just showed you on the previous slide, give them a reason to look forward to your next email. But the third thing that you could do, and I can't believe I didn't put this in here, is you could do a soft sell. On the weeks where I'm just telling a story, I always have something that I want to try and sell people on those weeks too. So maybe it's like, hey, shop at my farmer's market store. Or this is the special this week. It's not the focus of the email, but it's got to be in there because I want to drive them to those places to buy. And so that's another way you can use the PS. It comes out as a soft sell, and people are willing to read it, and it doesn't feel weird because you've just shared this really cool story in the bulk of the email. So that's another way to use the PS very powerfully. So we're going to finish the rest of this presentation by talking through some of the rules of engagement when it comes to email copywriting. And I can't stress this enough. These writing rules are different than the ones that you were taught when you were taught how to write essays in school. So anybody who's on here who's a professor like Tim or teacher, like, I'm going to share things here that you're going to just like roll over in your grave and be like, oh my gosh, that's like not good grammar. Listen, we are not writing essays when we're writing copywriting for our customers with email. So let me just remember, we want this to look like a letter. So the first rule of thumb, if you want people to actually enjoy reading your emails and look forward to getting them, is you've got to embrace this idea that you have to write like you talk. And we do not talk in complete sentences, perfect grammar. We talk in fragments, right? So it needs to sound like a conversation. It needs to flow like a conversation. That means that sometimes you have one-word sentences. Like here it says, but Corinna, how does a typical canning session flow? Great question. Okay, now an English teacher would say, that's a fragment, and you would get -2 on your paper. Those rules don't apply in email copywriting, okay? The way this is gonna end up reading, it's like you and I are just having a chat and it just flows, okay? So write like you talk. And sometimes what I'll do, if I'm stuck, is I'll actually like record myself talking what I wanna say in the email, and then I'll go back and type out how I talked. This is a great way to kind of unlock yourself, okay? So second rule of thumb, it should feel like a letter. So this is why I am not a fan of those email newsletter template things, because those send visual cues that we're writing this email to a wider audience, and it doesn't feel like a personal, it doesn't have that personal touch. So that's why I want to challenge you to try just doing the simple letter format for a while and see if you get better open rates. I think it creates a different feel. Personalize your intro. So most email service providers allow you to create personalization. For me, the rule here is to write it like the subscriber.first_name, and I put that at the top, and that will just pull their first name from the email service provider. And you can also insert that throughout the letter itself too, if you want to not just put it at the heading. Again, it makes it feel like a letter. It has a different feel to it. Use formatting when you write your emails. This is stuff like bold, italics, bullet points, headings that have maybe a little bit bigger point size, centering things, throwing images in, using emojis. If you just have giant blocks of paragraph text, people's eyes are going to roll back in their heads. You guys know what I'm talking about, because this has happened to you when you've read emails, right? And you just go, oh my God, I'm going to have to burn brain cells to read this email. So we want to break it up. We want to break up that text by using formatting, because the eye will scan the email. They're going to jump around to these bold things, to the italicized things, to the bullets. You're making it easier for them to read it. And so then they can scan it and get the gist of it a whole lot faster. White space goes along with this too. So avoid those large blocks of text, avoid long paragraphs. I use the carriage return often. So I am hitting return. I have like 1 sentence paragraphs, maybe 2 sentences. If there's more than 2 sentences, like I've got to cut one of those sentences and it's not important. I'm trying to keep it scannable. Okay, so you can see that really visually here in this email. I think I broke my rule. No, there's 2 sentences in that one long one, but anything longer than that and the person might not read that paragraph, right? Just break it up. Just put a carriage return. We already talked about including a picture or a graphic. Again, that's a formatting piece. It keeps the eye moving down the page and it creates interest. Plus, pictures are like a form of copywriting, right? They're a form of persuasion. You can communicate something really fast with a picture. So finding the right photograph to accentuate your message can be very powerful. All in all, we just want this email to be scannable, and this formatting draws the eye down and it keeps the person reading, which is the whole goal. I also make heavy use of the ellipsis, and if you don't know what that is, it's those ... dots. I'll throw them into my 1 sentence paragraphs all the time. And I wonder if I have an example. Do I have one here? No, wait, hold on. I think I have one on the last page. Yeah, I almost didn't explore this option for him, ... Here's what I'm rather embarrassed to confess to you, ... So when a person sees a ... it's like an open loop. it makes us have to read the next sentence. Very powerful as a writer. So again, your English teacher would be all over you if you had this in your paper everywhere, but you know what? She's not here. So you can put that in your email, and I promise you, it changes the feel of your letter. It feels like a conversation now. So use those a lot. Those are fun. Okay, include a clickable call to action. All right, we've already talked about how you have to have a call to action, but I want to challenge you to make sure it's something they can click. All right, something that they can click, even if it's not taking them to something to buy. And this is why this is important. Sorry, I'm checking my notes. We are coaching the click. I want you to think about this for a minute. Your weekly emails, sometimes you're just telling stories, right? You're just trying to build connection, get them to like you, find common ground. And now they're looking forward to that next email because you always write something fun and they want to, I can't wait to open it. And then bam, you hit them and the PS was a promotional thing and they find out about it, right? Like, okay, but when we're coaching the click, we are training a behavior so that they will repeat it when it really matters. So if whenever they click on something and it always takes them to something valuable, like that message is a subtle signal that goes into their mind. That, wow, whenever I click something in her emails, something cool is on the other side. Now, when you have a clickable link where you're asking them to buy something, it is just natural behavior for them to click on it because that's the only thing they can click in that email. And they've always clicked on something in your email, right? This is the concept of coaching the click. So if you always have a clickable CTA in your emails, it makes it much more likely that they'll feel comfortable clicking on the link that says buy now. So that's just some psychology that they teach you in sales class. And I have found that it really works. So I always have some kind of a clickable link. So my challenge today, I'm wrapping this up here. I've come almost to the end. I'm on my second to last slide. I want you this week to try and write. If you can't do it this week, okay, next week. But the next time you write a weekly email, I want you to try using what you've learned today, maybe a few tips. And this is not something that suddenly just comes upon you in one night and now you're an amazing email copywriter. This is something you have to practice. I have been doing this now for 4 or 5 years. And so my email open rates are like 70 to 80%, which is ridiculous, I know, but I've been practicing a lot. And with time, you will learn what people like, what people like to click on, what they're responding to, and you'll get better and better and better at it. So I want to ask you, just kind of get some feedback here. After hearing some of these tips that I've shared, do you feel a little more confident about writing a better weekly email? Do you feel a little more empowered? So how confident or empowered do you feel? And I'd like you to answer that in the chat from a scale of 1 to 5. Hopefully we're at least at a 2 now and not a 1. Let's see if we have anybody respond. Everyone's like, I don't know, man. Oh my gosh, 4s. I love it. I love it. A -3 from Melinda. I think you meant 3. That's hilarious. I will take that as a 3. Intimidated about constantly coming up with content. Yeah, totally. So if you download, Chris, if you grab those writing prompts that I talked about, that is going to unlock you because you're going to realize there are actually so many things that you could talk about. And it's okay if you skip a week and you don't have one, right? But we don't want that to be the norm because the email algorithm actually pays attention to your consistency. So you get an email sender reputation score by the internet service providers. And if you are not sending your email on a regular basis or you're jumping around, you have it on a different day all the time, those are red flags, and it gives you a lower sender reputation score. And that causes your emails to show up in the promotions tab more often. It's one of the things that causes that. So this is why I'm going to encourage you, your next steps. I want you to go listen to episode 20 of my podcast, the My Digital Farmer podcast. I have the link right there to go and find the show notes page for that, where you can find that link. It's called How to Avoid the Email Promotions tab, which is another thing you should probably know as you're trying to get better at this weekly email thing. And then download my email writing prompts. There's the link right there for you. I would love it if you'd follow me on Instagram at My Digital Farmer. I do an Instagram story almost every other day with a marketing tip. They're really great. And please listen to my podcast. It's the best thing that I do. It's free. It's called the My Digital Farmer Podcast. It drops every Wednesday, and I have 150 some episodes now. So I recommend you start at the beginning. The first 10 were designed to kind of give you an onboarding ramp into the marketing space. So that's the end of my presentation. I'm afraid to look at the time.
Oh, you did great. It's 8:04
Thank goodness.
or
Awesome.
7:04 for you, right?
Okay. I did it in 55 minutes.
Yes, that was wonderful. There's
Awesome.
one question in the chat, and if anyone else wants to send one, go for it. So Deanne asked, how do you balance personal and relational versus appropriate protection of your privacy, especially if you have children? You know, how do you be relatable, but also kind of keep your private life to yourself?
Yeah, well, if that is something that you're worried about, it sounds like the question that's important to you, that you're not super comfortable about sharing super private things, well, then obviously don't do it. I would say then look for other stories that you can tell that are happening around you on the farm that are inspiring, that have some kind of wise word. Think of yourself as the wise farmer, right? You are living so close to the soil. You have some amazing things that you could share with people. And I would be looking more then for those kinds of stories. If you don't want to feature your kids, I just found I'm much more comfortable doing that. And my customers, I have a CSA, I think I told you guys that. And my customers really, like, they're not just buying my produce. They're buying the idea behind the farmer, right? Like, they want to support the local farmer. That means they want to get to know their farmer. That's actually what they want. They told me that they want to know the story behind their food. They like knowing where their food comes from. So that's kind of part of what they're buying. Like, they want me to share my life with them. So I feel like that's why that resonates with them when I tell stories about my family life and what it's like to be a farm mom and an entrepreneur and a farm wife, and the difference. I used to be a city suburb girl, this is a big difference. And many of my clients are suburb women, and they live vicariously through me. So those kinds of stories resonate. Remember, we're trying to connect with them. And so when we can find common ground, that's what you need to do. You need to find the stories that find common ground. And if you don't want to share your family parenting stories, no problem, but you have other stories that your clients have also experienced. I'll share like a silly example that got like a ton of responses from people that I just shared a few weeks ago. My husband has these reading glasses, and he's just started having to wear them about 6 months ago. A sign of aging, right? But one of them was cracked, like cracked on the edge, and he still kept wearing them. And so I finally was like, dude, can I just go buy you some more? Like, they're not that expensive, right? And so I did. I went and got him some for his, what was one of his Christmas presents. He got like 3 of them so he could scatter them around. And I thought that he would throw away the cracked glasses, but no, he didn't. In fact, guess which ones he still wears? The cracked glasses. So I caught a picture of him wearing that, and I was like, what are you doing? Like, I tease him about this all the time. So I took a picture of it and I shared that story. And everybody has a story like that. Maybe it's not the cracked glasses, but they have a story of somebody who will not freaking give up something in their house that just needs to get thrown away, right? So that's a common ground story where they can all chuckle and be like, oh my gosh, my farmer, he's so funny, right? I like him. And that's what this weekly newsletter email has the potential to do. So yeah.
No, I think that's a great point. I think it's difficult sometimes for farmers to kind of break into that, like talk about themselves, because I'll tell farmers all the time, share your story, and they hear that from everyone. But it's still difficult to get farmers to talk about themselves. So even something as simple as the prompts that you shared, and things like sharing about your husband whose glasses are broken and he continues to wear them. It's something simple like that, and being able to practice, like you said. So do you have, or do you recommend a certain email service like MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that? Or
Most farmers start with MailChimp. And so I feel like that's what I recommend to people. It's free and it can get the job done. I find it personally a little clunky, and I do some pretty advanced email marketing with automations and stuff. And I just find that MailChimp is not able to do what I need it to do. And so I personally use ConvertKit. Another one that I think is that I've heard other farmers that are kind of advanced use is Drip, ActiveCampaign. Those are kind of the three that come to mind off the top of my head. I think out of all of those, ActiveCampaign is probably the least expensive. But I think what you really need to pay attention to, the most important things when you're picking your email service provider, honestly, are number one, does it integrate with your other tools? That's pretty big. And MailChimp tends to be the one that if a software service for farms is going to do integrations, they're going to do one with MailChimp first, because that's the one that most farmers use. So that's what you should probably think about first, but also, does it have the ability does it have a good deliverability? MailChimp is not known for that. It tends to end up in the spam promotions tab a bit, but that may also be because people just don't know how to format the email, and like some of these tricks I shared with you about, having fun content inside that people can't wait to read the story this week. The more people that open your emails, the higher your sender reputation score will be, and then they just keep sending it to the inbox and not to the spam folder. So,
and I think you might have touched on this, but the same way that you would check your social media metrics, check your email metrics, because the things that do well, you might be surprised at. Something like the glasses that you almost would never think to send out, and then that's something that does really, really well. And then you can go from there and do similar content like that, but don't follow a format like you were saying. Keep things fresh.
Yeah, for sure. You want to be paying attention to your open rates. That's probably the big one. And I do from time to time, probably every 4 months, I clean my list. I'm really active about if somebody hasn't opened an email in 3 months, and my email service provider is able to track that, I just cut them, like they're deleted. I used to do re-engagement campaigns. I don't even do that anymore. I'm like, you're gone. And if you really want to get back on my list, you will miss me, and you will reach out, and you will find a way. But if they're not opening my emails, they're dragging down my sender reputation, and I just don't want that. So
that's really nice too, because as someone that has a very large email that is unopened right now, the things that I constantly delete, I almost just wish they would unsubscribe me themselves.
Yeah.
So there is one question in the chat that says, this might be a random question, but do you have any tips to transition to the story type of emails from the other ones, or the not as good ones? And she was saying, basically, do you just go for it now after this session? Do you just make a story kind of email and your customers will get used to it? Or do you need to do some kind of in between and transition towards that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know exactly what their format looks like right now. So if you're more of a structured, like a formal newslettery type thing, then maybe just try inserting one of your elements in that email. Could be a story. Maybe it's the story you lead with, like it should be the thing at the top, and make it kind of short and sweet. And you could still include some of your other blocks if you need to, and then just see how that does. And as you get more confident, begin to make that the main thing. I should also say that I kind of have 2 different seasons of the weekly email. I have the season when I'm heavy in the CSA. So when my CSA members are getting the weekly email newsletter, that looks different than the weekly email that's going on the rest of the year. So during the season, I have specific information that I need to deliver in that email, in addition to this quick little story at the top with the picture. That's almost like the highlights reel that draws them in. It's the hook. And then underneath that is I have these kind of sections. So the first one is like, here's what's going to be in the box. Here's a link to take you off to the recipes. And here's a link that takes you off to my newsletter blog, where I have, the following 3 things that I go into deeper, like there's always a field notes section that Farmer Kurt writes on the blog, but I tease out what's in there, and everybody wants to know what are the fields doing, right? And so that becomes the thing that I don't give it all away in this email. I link them somewhere else where that content lives. That's kind of the format in those 18 weeks of our CSA season. And then once that's over, I go to this one focus topic kind of a thing that keeps them connected. And then the stories that would normally be in my weekly email are kind of hidden in that blog, in that, field notes section that Kurt's writing and that I'm writing with him. So I wanted to distinguish that too, but that's just how I do it. But you could also just have it be one format the whole time.
No, that is an interesting format, especially with, the off season being a time that's huge for retention, and especially just making things very, very interesting. But during CSA season, everyone is busy. So, if they want to go and read a long bit about it, they go to the blog for that.
Yeah.
Cindy asked, on average, how much time does it take per week to compose, send, monitor, and manage your weekly email? And you're probably a pro at that now. So maybe a comparison between when you first started and now.
That's what I was going to say. When I first started, I would say it took me an hour and a half to write it. And now I can whip it out. Unless there's a lot of stuff that needs to go in there, I can whip it out in about 40 minutes, 45 minutes. Sometimes even half an hour if it's just short and sweet, but it's because I've gotten really good at just clipped sentences, almost tongue in cheek, kind of talking like I have this voice. Yeah. So it really helps to have someone kind of guiding you along too. I think when you're first learning it, who can look at it and just be like, change this, try this. That's what I do for some of my students too, is I just try to help them see what they could quickly change and kind of find their own voice. Doesn't have to sound like mine, obviously.
Do you spend a lot of time, monitoring it and checking the metrics with it, or is that just kind of in passing, you'll check it occasionally?
Yeah, so the way that ConvertKit is set up, when you log into the platform, the dashboard has probably the most important information metrics on it. So it's a very quick scan, like it's showing me, are my subscribers going up? Excuse me. And what's my open rate looking like? And I have this awesome asymptote going up. So, I don't see, and I also see how many people are subscribing on this day. I pay attention to that number. When I go to write the weekly email for the next week, I often go to the last week's and copy it. So I automatically see the stats at that point in time. Like, oh, this one was in the upper 60% as opposed to 75. I wonder why. Just kind of like, that's interesting. Maybe it was my subject line or whatever. Yeah, I don't the answer is no, I don't really spend a ton of time. It's kind of just, I know what to look for when I'm doing the other jobs that I have to do in there already.
Well, and speaking of other jobs, you wear a lot of hats at your farm and in your business. So do you mind just like a 2-minute synopsis of your CSA Academy?
Oh, yeah, totally. So the CSA Academy is a resource library that we offer to our CSA members, and now I offer it to CSA farmers. It is the place where all of our educational content to help them become a better CSA member lives. So over the course of a couple of seasons, when I first got into all of this content creation, I was making like a training video for what to do with arugula, what to do with zucchini, how to blanch, how to make pesto, how to do a sheet pan meal. Like I was just trying to educate my members. And so every week I would do a quick video, and sometimes I would make an actual PDF guide or infographic that went along with it. And after 3 months of doing that, I had a ton of stuff, and people were asking me like, what's that pesto worksheet again? And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. So I put it all into one space, into this digital library called the Academy. And all of my members get access to it for free, and they can just find all that stuff. It's really well organized. So it has a ton of great topics in it, like the beginner's guide to CSA. It's like a mini course that I send all my rookies to, and I say, watch, it's like an hour's worth of content, like small little snippets that teaches them the basics. And I tell my people, try to go watch like, I don't know, half those things that are in there, just to kind of help you learn the mistakes that most people make the first year, right? There's a whole module about that I call Veggie U, which is a video tutorial and an ebook for every vegetable that we grow from A to Z. So if somebody needs specific help on ground cherries, right, they can go and watch that and learn how to store it. Like, it's just a quick short video. There's a section on the canning club. So for my more advanced members, they can go and watch a canning session, video session, and there's a cheat sheet, an illustrated guide that walks them through it. I'm trying to think what else is in there. Oh, the exit strategies, that's what I call it. This is like the teaching tutorials for the cooking tutorials. So how do you make a pesto? How do you roast? I mean, you'd be surprised. People don't know some of the different ways that they could move the product. And so when you kind of show them that grid, they run that vegetable through those different options. And they go, oh, I can just make a stir fry. Okay, well, or a frittata. Well, what's the formula for frittata? They can just go and find it in there on a little PDF guide with recipes or whatever. So yeah, it's an awesome resource that most of my CSA members make use of every week. And so farmers can actually, I now offer it to farmers too as a monthly subscription. You can get inside and you can see what are the things that we're uploading in there every week. And then all the stuff from the past is in there nicely organized. You can get ideas for what you could teach your customers. So it's a great place to go.
It's a great hub. If you want to check that out, it's on mydigitalfarmer.com. I believe it's under tools. It might be.
Yeah, it's easy to remember. It's mydigitalfarmer.com/academy, and that'll take you to the page that explains everything that's inside of it. And I think you can get the first month for $1 with the coupon code TRIAL, TRIAL. And that way you can just test it out and be like, do I like this? That way there's really no risk for you. And then you just cancel if you don't like it.
I'll be sure to send that out. It's just a great resource because, you know, a lot of the things that we think are common knowledge, because we're in this world, are not common knowledge. And so it is nice to, you know, have those storage tips, recipes, cooking videos, all of those things for your CSA members so that they can really utilize their box the best way that they can. Yeah. Thank you so much, Corinna. This was amazing. I will make sure that we send everything out. And thank you so much, everyone, for attending tonight. Like I have said a few times, just to remind you that we have recorded all of these and we will have these available after the summit concludes. Tomorrow's sessions will be Brett Wolf and Camille Dant from the University of Kentucky's Center for Crop Diversification, talking about pricing your product, and also Carolyn Coombs of Jericho Acres Dairy and A Modern Milkmaid, and Sabrina Hounshell of Seriously Sabrina Photography, presenting on photography for websites and social media. The link for tomorrow's sessions will be the same as tonight and the night before. So just use that. Again, if you have problems, just reach out to us via email. And thank you so much. We hope to see you tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Central. Thank you so much, everyone. Bye.